I feel like this year was pretty tame on April Fool's jokes. I didn't hear anything crazy. I didn't see any drama. There wasn't any, like, company doing something crazy that caused everybody to freak out. And in the FOSS world, I didn't see much going on either, which honestly is kinda sad. Yes, I know a lot of people, don't really like April Fools and kinda want it to die, but these people don't like fun, and I am going to keep doing it on my channel until I get bored. Which we'll see if that ever happens. It probably won't, because I really enjoy making these random fun videos every year. It's a nice change of pace. Now, there was one post I saw where I got something which I desperately wish it was real. And I thought it was real until I checked the date. No Snap or Flatpak Linux distros agreed to have only one universal packaging. There was hope, there was cope, and I wanted to believe. Sadly, it is what it is. Even so, I still want you to see it. Linux is fragmented. You don't need Torvalds to tell you that, although he has already told you that in the past. You definitely don't need Torvalds to tell you that. All you need to do is open your eyes and look at the Linux distros. Not just the fact that a lot of them exist, the fact that there are all of these different package managers and packaging formats. It would be one thing if they all shared the same underlying system and it was all just about defaults and pre-installed packages and configuration and all that sort of stuff. But that's not the world we live in. From dev to RPM, Linux packaging has always been a mess. One packaging format won't work on the other side of the distro spectrum. To address the issue, a universal packaging system was concepted that could work on any distro. The only problem is everybody made their own universal format, and, yeah, show the XKCD. We do have Snap, Flatpak, and App Image, though. Now, yes, this is 3 different systems, but it's much better than the other system we have. The problem, though, is both Snap and Flatpak are sandbox solutions, and sandboxes are nice. They're nice, assuming developers want to support them, but you can't just chuck every application into a sandbox and expect it to work. There's been a lot of work that's gone into this to make this happen. There's some applications which don't make use of portals, which are just not going to work in this environment. And there's other programs that have their own sandboxing, which doesn't play nice if you put the sandbox into the sandbox. Also, the fact that Snap really hasn't been adopted by anyone but Canonical with Ubuntu, because people feel like it's a very corporate-y solution and feel like Flatpak is more of the community-driven approach. I say feel, but that is kind of the reality of it. Now, app images are not sandboxed, but they have a different problem. App images are just a way to install, not even install, a way to run an application, because you don't really install an app image, you just make it executable like you would a script and then just run it on your system. By default, there is no, like, app image packaging solution where you can easily download app images. There have been projects that have been sort of works in progress, but there's no unified or even just major app image stores. Now, some might argue this is fine, but one of the nice things about Linux is we don't have that Windows application installation model where you go to a website, download the thing from that, and then install it on your system. I like that we have package management, and Windows does have that to some extent now as well, because it's frankly just a better system, maybe not for your average everyday user, but it definitely is if you have more of a developer mindset or just like being in the terminal. So the current situation we're in is not an ideal situation, I know. Thankfully, I have got good news for you. Mark this date as I reveal the most shocking development since Linus Torvalds smiled at a conference. Meet OnePackage, the new universal packaging system for all. When I first read this post and when I got, I was kind of just like skim reading it. I saw the title, I saw this heading, I saw this graphic here, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I scrolled back up, and yeah. Sadly, I awoke from my dream. The fragmented Linux community has universally agreed to adopt a single universal packaging system, putting an end to decades-long packaging wars that have plagued the open source ecosystem. During the One Linux conference remotely organized in Greenland, representatives of Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora, Red Hat, IBM, SUSE all agreed to make Linux great again by opting to work on a single packaging system. If you read this post and you didn't realize it was a parody by this point, well, nothing's gonna save you because it became very, very obvious reading this. The reason for that is the distros would never agree. There would be like a prototype that some developer from some random project decides, hey, I'm gonna work on this, I'm gonna try to fix this problem. But to have distro leadership actually agree on that would never happen. Also, I like the very subtle US joke here. The make Linux great again part is a bit more overt. The Greenland part, that's what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. If you don't, look up USA Greenland and you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what? I can really appreciate a very subtle US joke you gotta be paying attention to actually notice. Because a lot of people just write, Orange Man! Orange Man! And that would be the joke. Here you gotta think a little bit. The new system dubbed OnePackage will replace the alphabet soup of existing formats, including Snap, Flatpak, AppImage, Deb, RPM, and the 17 other packaging formats that most users didn't even know existed. I actually don't know how many do exist that are like realistically used, right? Because there have been a bunch that have been prototyped and don't actually have any real active distros available today. I think the real number, excluding these ones, I think the real number is probably closer to, I'm gonna guess like 6 or 7. If anyone knows how many are actively used, let me know down below. So I mentioned this before, but he also made a nice graphic to go along with everything. OnePackage, unified Linux packaging system. Finally, one package format to rule them all. So the legacy formats go in, they go through some conversion into OnePackage, and then they go out to the distributions. One thing I would recommend here is for these lines down here, which you probably can't even see, there are lines there. They are a very light gray. Oh, wait, are they supposed to be lines? Hold up. I actually don't know now, because the lines extend above it. Is that something that's part of your graphic editor? Wait, now I'm more confused by what that is, because I think it extends over the blue part. Why are those lines there? Is this an even more subtle joke that I'm not even noticing? Anyway, just in case you missed it, it also does have April 1st on the graphic as well, which is, of course, very, very important. Just in case you missed the April 1st that was mentioned earlier in the post, now you're probably going to miss it again. Also, I like the core contributors. The previously arguing at Linux projects, Reddit's r/Linux moderators, and why is there white text and a white background? World Peace Committee. Ah. I see. Very important. Now, I kinda wish they used a real number for this. It says RFC 0401-2025, which is obviously the 4th of January 2025. I think it's supposed to mean 1st of April, but, you know, weird American date format. There are some very, very fun numbers that could have been there that link to things like, HTTP over avian carrier, for example, which I always like to remind people exists. And over here on the key features, zero dependency hell, actual uninstallation support, and again, white text on a white background, quantum disk space compression, I think is what that says. OnePackage promises to combine the security of Flatpak, the centralization of Snap, the portability of AppImage, and none of the arguments from Reddit threads. This part here, I could go without that part. The Reddit thread arguments, well, you're never going to escape that. No matter what you do, they're always going to be there. It's going to be like, oh, well, I liked the old format. The new format makes it too easy to use Linux. It makes the distros completely pointless. Yeah, you're never going to escape Reddit. Yeah. The format will also reportedly address the long-standing issue of system bloat by implementing a revolutionary technique as actually deleting things you don't need anymore. I have no idea what this is supposed to be in reference to. Every package manager that I could think of will remove packages that you remove. So, if anyone knows, let me know. Now, whilst it's not entirely out of reach to solve the issue of different packaging formats, there's an attempt to solve the theming problem on KDE with a bunch of different theming systems being unified into one. Like, that is an achievable goal. It's not a likely goal in the case of packaging, but it's achievable. One thing that is not achievable is different distros would still have their own packages, even if they are compatible, because different distros are going to want to ship different versions of software. Say if you're something like Arch, you want to ship more up-to-date packages in a more rolling way, whereas if you're Debian, you'd prefer to be far more stale. Then there are projects like PopOS, where some parts of the system are going to be fairly stable, and then other parts, like the kernel, might be rolling. Or Fedora, where you're mostly up to date, but you do a lot more extensive testing on things. And yes, there is a place for user software like your browser, like OBS, things like that, to be more up to date, as users want to get these features in a more timely fashion. That's why a lot of people opt for things like app images, like snaps, maybe not snaps as much, like Flatpaks, where the developers can ship things directly to the users at the rate that they want to ship them. But you're always going to have a bit of fragmentation just on the basis that different distros have different goals for what they're doing with their packages. But this is a development welcomed by everyone. Mark Shuttleworth, founder of Canonical, appeared visibly disoriented when asked about abandoning Snap. I feel strange, like thousands of forum complaints suddenly went silent, he said. Linux creator Linus Torvalds issued his typically measured response, "About effing time. Now we can focus on what really matters, telling people their code is garbage," but constructively. The transition to OnePackage is scheduled to begin next month with complete adoption expected by the end of 2055. Frankly, if this is a thing that did actually really happen, it probably would end up taking that long, or whenever we get around to it. Actually, this is when a attempt to fix the problem would actually start. Honestly, you know what would really happen if this was a real thing? It would be a work in progress, and then it would become the next universal packaging system. Distros wouldn't fully adopt it, maybe some would, but then you'd have this like mishmash of distros where you can technically merge things together, but dependencies still are an issue, and fun times. This is a problem which I don't think is ever going to be fixed, and I don't think anybody really actually cares to fix it, because the system we have now, yeah, it's not great, but everyone's kind of used to it. The conference was live streamed, and a few Reddit users reported seeing Fedora and Ubuntu developers engaged in a group hug after the announcement, though this remains unconfirmed as the video quality was poor due to everyone using a different media codecs. AV1 will solve everything. One day. Eventually. Until the next thing comes along, and the problem keeps happening. So, obviously, as I said at the start, this was an April Fool's joke, but I do kind of wish that it wasn't, and this was real, and this was a real post. I was so excited when I saw the post, and then I stopped being excited when I realized what day it was. But I can dream, I can hope, and I can cope. So, if you like the video, go like the video. If you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe, Steadily Bearer, pay linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and Did you get got by anything this year? I'd like to know.